Staying in our nation's capital, this was the scene there this morning. House Speaker Greg Fergus was grilled by MPs about his virtual appearance at a tribute to the outgoing interim Ontario Liberal Party leader John Fraser. Fergus's role is meant to be impartial. He was wearing his speaker's robe when he delivered that video tribute. Conservatives and Bloc Québécois MPs have called for him to resign. So let's talk a little bit more about this. For that, let's bring in Conservative strategist Jason Lietar. He's the president of the public affairs firm Enterprise Canada. Jason, there was a lot of questions that Greg Fergus was facing today. He also started out with an apology at the start of Proc. So let's first break that down. What did you make of his unequivocal, "I'm sorry, I messed up, I'm going to do better"?
I mean, it was needed, first of all. I think we're all a little baffled by this, Arthi, right? I mean, Mr. Rhoda, sort of embarrasses Canada. He's summarily dismissed. We've got a new speaker. It's Mr. Fergus. We sort of just want quiet. Like, I don't want most Canadians to know the speaker's name for the next little bit, just sort of quiet it down. And now we're in this other controversy. Obviously, an apology was needed. I don't know. It's obviously not going to be enough for the Conservatives and the Bloc. And I will say it was there was parts of the apology that were really weird. Like, it was like, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have done it, but I didn't think it was going to get out. Like, I thought it was a private video, and like, I don't think that's a very good defense for, I thought this was going to be done in secret. So it doesn't seem to be a very good defense for the speaker. So listen, I thought he needed to go and do what he did today, but I got to tell you, I am baffled. I am baffled that he's in this controversy. I'm baffled that he's got this kind of judgment, and I'm baffled that he's made a couple of mistakes along the same lines. It's really discouraging.
Would it have made a difference if he was not wearing the speaker's robe? Certainly, it might not have caught the attention of as many people. Would that have made a difference in this role? Should he even be participating in videos like this?
I mean, he shouldn't be participating in videos like this. Like, that's the sundae, right? That's the ice cream and the caramel sauce and stuff like that. But the speaker's robe, that was the cherry and the whipped cream on top. I mean, he shouldn't have been doing it. He never should have been doing it. Everybody knows. And once you're the speaker, you've got to command and especially in a house that's as divided as this one, by the way. It's really hot in Ottawa right now. People are really mad at each other. The speaker needs to rise above that and be, sort of impartial and not have to be questioned. And the truth is that he's done this twice in a month. One, essentially making a video saying, look at how great we did getting Dalton McGuinty reelected, in a really nice video for a really nice guy, John Fraser. And then going to Washington a second time and saying, I remember our time as a young Liberal. I mean, that is just unacceptable, and I think quite serious. And I think you're seeing that it's being dealt with quite seriously by members of Parliament, because it's a big issue, and they've got to trust him.
And to the point of course, the polarization, but also the fluidity of this situation. Some of the questions we heard there kind of outlined, hey, some of the criteria for a House Speaker, we need good judgment and impartiality. And that is coming into question here, demonstrated by the actions of Greg Fergus. There are calls we talked about from the Conservatives and from the Bloc Québécois. What about the NDP? We know that Liberals at this stage have publicly been quite supportive of Greg Fergus moving forward after this, admitting to the mistake. Where does the NDP stand on this, and how much of a difference does that make in the whole picture here?
It's the whole question on whether or not Mr. Fergus is going to have to step down. If we go back to the vote, the NDP is the opposition party that picked Mr. Fergus as the speaker. They had a first choice. He was their second or third choice. They were able to come together with the Liberals as part of, just generally they get along. They've got an agreement. They're, running a government that's not a coalition government. You're seeing, they're working in lockstep on all sorts of different issues. So they sent their House leader to the committee today to essentially ask some pretty tough questions. That's Peter Julian. I suspect that Mr. Julian is rightly offended by this. He probably feels very similar to his Conservative Bloc colleagues about this. I expect that the NDP will huff and puff, ask a bunch of tough questions, say that they've, sort of given Mr. Fergus a good talking to, and will probably not vote. And the one thing is the Liberals and the NDP do have a majority on this committee, Arthi. So if the Liberals and the NDP get together to make sure that Mr. Fergus stays in power as Speaker, that's probably what's going to happen.
And Jason, of course, we've sort of touched on it, but maybe not delved into it. But, it's been a tumultuous several weeks when it comes to House Speakers in Canada. You touched on the fact that, of course, Anthony Rhoda had to step down, and that was because of the unfortunate incident that happened when we know Volodymyr Zelensky was being honored here and was in Parliament, and there was an individual there with connections to Nazi regime. And so this is something now that we've got another House Speaker that is it's a very different set of circumstances, absolutely. But you know, when you joined us back then, you had said, you know, the new Speaker's job will be to reassure people and fade into the background. So what do you make of what we're seeing sort of unfold here now? Because this is very different from what you had hoped for back in October.
That's why I'm so disappointed. I think I said at the time as well that Mr. Fergus is a nice guy. You know, he's a person who I've known a little bit. I think most people who've been on Parliament Hill for quite some time were hoping that at least I was disappointed in how partisan his background was. Not everybody's partisan, but I mean, he was the president of the Young Liberals. I thought that gave him a really difficult thing, you know, sort of challenge to get over. I think he had to work extra hard. The Conservatives right out of the gate, I think maybe the Bloc Québécois were looking at him sort of askance saying, well, can we trust you? And it turns out he's made a couple of really huge mistakes. I mean, mistakes that we haven't seen from a federal speaker in quite some time. I mean, and all the scrutiny, all the things that he should have known, that he really had to sort of get this thing to Christmas. It's like, we got to get this ship to Christmas. Parliament's in a really tough spot. That's one of the reasons why I'm so disappointed. One of the reasons why I think he's made such a huge misstep. One of the reasons why I think he should have considered resigning, to be honest with you. That said, I think the Liberals and the NDP will probably get together, make sure that he's the speaker. And I can only hope that Mr. Fergus has learned something from this. And, you know, you got to put the red ties away. You got to put the red, background away. You've got to be impartial from now till the time that you're not speaker. Otherwise, your credibility and Parliament's credibility is on the line.